You're listening to the Mama Podcast from Mama Academy, the UK's safer pregnancy charity. In this episode, Chris shares his family story of postpartum psychosis, a rare but treatable mental illness that can affect new mums after birth. It's an honest conversation about recovery, resilience, and the importance of awareness. Here's Chris, in conversation with Mama Academy's founder and CEO, Heidi Eldridge.
Well, welcome to this edition of the Mama Podcast. I'm your host, Heidi Eldridge, the CEO and founder of Mama Academy. And here we are with Chris from Surrey, who I met not that long ago at a midwifery conference. And Chris does lots of work, lots of campaigning, and represents action on postpartum psychosis. So welcome to the podcast, Chris. Would you like to tell everybody all about yourself, who you are and where you live?
Absolutely. Firstly, thank you for having me. I know it was only in May, wasn't it, that we met? But yeah, very excited for this morning. So my second ever podcast, which is both scary and exciting. So in 2019, my wife was diagnosed with the maternal mental illness postpartum psychosis after the birth of our son. Our son was our first child. And it really has had a significant impact on our lives. You know, that was 2019. So we're almost 7 years now, which is scary to think. I'm not quite sure how I've got a 7-year-old. But it still impacts us, even to this day. So it has been a massive part of our life. And over the last few years, I've been campaigning really to help raise awareness of what really is a relatively unknown illness. And also campaigning to raise awareness of the underrepresented but so important mother and baby units. And I guess from a selfish partner's perspective, just the impact that illnesses like this can actually have on the partners and the family networks. I would never say, you know, when someone has a baby, when a mum has a baby, everybody focuses on the mums, and rightly so. And I would never, ever say any differently. But it really has hit home with experiences like we've had, kind of the impact that things, unknown or unforeseen things, do have on the partners and the family network as well. So that's a large part of kind of why I've started campaigning and awareness raising and you know, taking up opportunities like this. So thank you for having me on.
Well, thank you so much for, talking so openly and so transparently and raising awareness, because it's so important. And I think a lot of this, like you say, because people are unaware of it, it kind of goes undetected for quite some time as well, and everybody struggles. So tell us about your sort of personal experience and what exactly is postpartum psychosis.
Sure. So postpartum psychosis it's a severe but treatable maternal mental illness that affects around 1,400 new mums in the UK every year. So that equates to around about 1 to 2 in 1,000 women. It is most common for it to begin in the first few days and weeks after birth, often in the first few days, but it can develop later and symptoms can present themselves later, sometimes several weeks after the birth of a baby, but that is more rare. The symptoms can include hallucinations and delusions, often including mania, depression, and confusion. But it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of illness, I guess, like most illnesses, to be fair. Mums can experience a wide range of symptoms, and everybody has different experiences. Although it's quite interesting over the years and speaking to different dads and partners and who've experienced PP, and although everybody's experiences are different, it is amazing how there's usually kind of common themes going through it, and there are similarities in our experiences. Half of all cases happen to women out of the blue with no previous psychiatric history, and statistics do estimate that there is a 5% suicide rate associated with postpartum psychosis. But importantly, I suppose, that with the appropriate treatment and support, new mums can be expected to make a full recovery in time. I guess that's one of the big parts, is how long is in time. I guess the one thing I'd say that to anybody listening and to anybody watching this, firstly, thank you. But if you take home just one thing from me today, I will be happy. And that's that postpartum psychosis is a medical emergency. So I guess our story, like I've said, it was almost 7 years ago now. So I'm always very conscious of time, because I'm very thankful for this opportunity, but nobody wants to hear me talk for hours and hours on end about the last 7 years. So I will condense things down. But in June 2019, my amazing wife, and she is that, I love her with all my heart, and she is incredible for everything we still face. She gave birth to our son. He was our first child in June 2019. And we had no issues during pregnancy or the birth. And we count ourselves really, really thankful for that. We count ourselves lucky for that. And my wife did amazing that day. We welcomed our son into this world, and we were moved to the maternity ward after a few hours, and I was sent home then when it became too late for partners to stay. And in hindsight, that was our start of our postpartum psychosis journey. I will talk about hindsight a few times probably, because me and hindsight are not friends. We don't get on at all. And I think that's just a way of how you look back on things, I suppose. But I left my wife that night, tired, granted, she'd been through a lot that day, but elated. Our son was here and our whole world had changed. You go into a hospital, it was our first child, so you go into a hospital, just two of you, and then all of a sudden there's three of you. And as a first-time parent, that's just mad to get your head around. But when I returned back to the hospital, only a few hours later, really, the next morning, my wife was so different. She was scared and she was exhausted, and it was such the opposite of what I'd left that night, the night before. And we came home, and the first week at home was a cycle, really, of sadness, confidence, hysteria, and relative normality. And it got to the point towards the end of the first week at home that I could honestly look at the clock and tell you what emotion was coming next and when, like almost to the minute. I remember my mum came around one day and I said, in a moment, my wife's going to behave like this. And my mum was like, it's a bit of a strange thing to say. And it was spot on. It was spot on. And I've already mentioned hindsight, but I wish I knew then what I knew now. Because for years, I beat myself up about that first week. And I took the responsibility of that week on me. We had midwives come out in the community to come and see us, and no one raised any concerns or anything like that. But I guess midwives and people come into our lives for a snippet of time. I've known my wife for years. We've been together since university. So absolutely, the midwives are the experts when it comes to babies and the health needs and everything like that. Absolutely. But I guess I knew something was wrong that week, and I didn't do anything about it. I'll give myself some slack in that I'm a first-time dad. I'd never looked after a baby before. I'd never even held a baby before. They terrified me. It's far too small and they look far too fragile. Obviously, I've learned along the way that they're not as fragile as they look. But I knew something was wrong. If it was baby blues or hormones or whatever it was, I knew something was wrong. But I didn't do anything about it. And 1 week to the day, so it was the following Sunday, my wife had concerns about our son's digestive system, so she wanted us to take him to hospital to get him checked. I called the labour ward instead, rather than taking us to hospital. Explained everything to them, explained my wife's concerns, and they said that everything was okay. We were doing really well. They weren't worried about anything. Happy days, And I said on that phone call, I am worried about my wife. She's not quite acting right. And they were really nice about it. And they said, just keep an eye on her. If you have any concerns, raise it, kind of thing. But I was too late with that. And we finished our phone call, and I told my wife the good news that the labour ward had passed on, and there was nothing to worry about. We didn't have to go to hospital. We're all okay. And my wife started shouting and screaming in pure fear, and she was confused. And our world just fell apart in an instant. And it's quite funny to look back on. Funny is probably not the right word, but we had just had dinner, and everything went wrong, like I said, in a split instant. And we went to my mum's that night, and I know now that my wife was experiencing hallucinations and hearing things, but we left in such a hurry that it looks like life had just stopped in our house. The dinner plates were still on the table. The baby stuff was still everywhere. We left just like that, drop of a hat, because I didn't know what to do and I didn't know where to go. So we went to my mum's, and we managed to settle my wife and get some sleep. And I woke the next morning to find my wife cradling our boy, and my mum just kind of gave me a look that things were not okay. And at that point, my wife asked me who our boy was, and when he had died, and how he had died. And there's nothing that can prepare you for something like that. I had no idea what was going on. And I called our local hospital. I called ahead because we had to go somewhere, and explained what we had. We went to a hospital, and we were met by an absolutely amazing perinatal mental health midwife. And she was brilliant. And she diagnosed my wife with postpartum psychosis, like instantly, really. But things went very badly wrong in the hospital when we were there, and I'm very thankful that we were in the hospital for when it happened. Kind of out of nowhere, really. I think whoever was there, the nurses were just trying to take some blood from my wife, and she just started screaming again in pure fear, jumping up and down on the hospital bed. And I looked at my wife and I looked into her eyes, and there was absolutely none of her left. It wasn't my wife. I didn't know who it was. And I'm really thankful that we were at the hospital for that, because, the night before was bad, but I don't know what I would have done if we were at home and that had happened. And I'm not proud of it, how I reacted that day in the hospital. But I just crumpled to the floor and I cried. I didn't help my wife. I didn't help my boy. I didn't help anybody. I just sat on the floor in the corner room and I cried. And later, my wife was settled with medication. We were moved to what I can only describe as a geriatric ward, which I'm sure is not the official name of where we ended up, but I didn't care at that point where we were. But it wasn't the most suitable environment for us. And the following morning, we were told we were going to a mother and baby unit, which I had no idea what one was. Never heard of one before. Didn't know what it involved or anything. I was just really told that that's where my wife and son were going, and it was the best place for them. So we ended up in the mother and baby unit in Bournemouth, in Dorset, and we stayed there for 4 weeks, just over 4 weeks for that admission, and we were released home. And then it was kind of a case of managing my wife at home at that point. Again, in hindsight, my wife was released from the mother and baby unit too soon. I was desperate for her to come home. I was desperate for my boy to come home. And I'll come on to the mother and baby unit and kind of what they are and what was involved. And they are brilliant. But I just wanted us to be home. And my wife was very good at giving the right answers. So I think I knew that she wasn't as well as she kind of was making out and answering, but I turned a blind eye because I wanted her home.
Well, 4 weeks of a newborn is quite a long time, you know, and you had this idea and this plan that you were, you know, going to be at home. So for 4 weeks, that's a long time. So I'm not surprised that you wanted, and especially to trial it, see what things would be like if you got back home.
That's it. I just wanted to be, you know, you have ideas and aspirations, I suppose, don't you, with having a baby, and you never know what's going to be involved with having a baby. No one can answer that for you, but that's certainly not the start to our son's life that I ever saw coming. that wasn't even a consideration. So I just wanted them home, and you know, they came home. My wife wasn't well enough. I ended up having 3 months off work because she was too unwell to be left at home on her own and with our boy, which is really hard to be able to explain to like friends and family or your work and for them to understand. I mean, any of it is it's difficult for people to kind of to explain and understand, but you know, we managed things kind of settled down a bit, but we got to March 2020, which to everybody is known as the beginning of COVID, beginning of lockdown.
Yeah.
And unfortunately for us, that coincided with a relapse. So as soon as COVID lockdown began, we ended up back in the mother and baby unit. But this time it wasn't a we at all. My wife and my boy went, but because COVID was a new beast, it was, you know, ripping the world apart.
You weren't allowed to.
I wasn't allowed to. So it was a very different experience to what I'd had the first time. Because the first time at the mother and baby unit, I was there all day. This time I couldn't visit at all. And that was really hard. But it was where my wife had to be. So, you know, you kind of have to take whatever feelings and thoughts you have about that out of the way because it's where my wife had to be.
So was she on medication at this point?
Yeah, so my wife started on, I always forget the name of the first medication that she was on. And then we went back, she was still on the medication when we had the relapse, went back to the mother and baby unit. We stayed there for a few weeks. They stayed there for a few more weeks, came home for 1 week, had another relapse, and then went back. And it was at that point we changed medication, and we changed to quetiapine, which my wife is still on now. And the change in medication had a massive impact and really, really helped. I don't think, you know, from speaking to other partners and things like that, there's not a different medication helps different people, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's not a one size, there's not a one medication fits all kind of thing. So the change in medication really did help my wife, and there was a marked improvement during that third admission when we changed quetiapine, which was great. So my wife and son came home then. During the third admission, I was allowed to do some outdoor visits and things as long as I was self-isolating. So that was amazing because just that little bit of time meant so much. And my wife came home, and quite along the years we've been involved with every kind of community team going. I didn't know that there was so many that existed. And it was when my son was 16 months old, my wife wanted to reduce her medication, which was supported by the community team, and you know, absolutely trust her decision and her wishes and what she wants to do. But unfortunately it did lead to a further relapse, and it was that relapse, it had to be treated at home because mother and baby units only accept mums and babies up to 1 year old. And my wife was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. So that was a new curveball thrown into the mix. But we managed to settle that, and we then made the decision to have another child. And in 2022, we welcomed our daughter. We knew the risks. You know, she was a planned pregnancy. We knew the chances. I think there's a 1 in 2 chance of a further episode of postpartum psychosis when you have in a future pregnancy, and the risks are increased when you have bipolar disorder. So it wasn't looking good for us. And I'm a planner. I have OCD. I'm ridiculously organized, and I knew what to do in all eventualities. But thankfully, it didn't happen again. How? I don't know. I think it was the mix of medication, the amazing support we had from the community team, from the hospital, because we had a midwife and a perinatal mental health midwife, and kind of planning meetings as we went along and learning from the first few times. You know, it wasn't.
Far more prepared.
That's it. I'd seen my wife's crisis episodes a few times over. They were always pretty similar, and we'd obviously learn things along the way that helped with her recovery. So kind of taking all things into account, it obviously helped, and thankfully we didn't experience it again. But like I've said, we're almost 7 years on now, and it still has a massive impact in our lives. My wife still to this day has blips. We call them blips. I think other people have different names for it. It's just kind of how we've coined it. But we still have regular periods when my wife disassociates, and the world just gets a bit much for her, or her thoughts get a bit much for her, and they still happen. And stress is a big contributing factor for her. Change of routine and things like that. So it's still something that we're kind of learning to manage and live with, but obviously we're learning along the way, and we're in a much better place than we were 7 years ago.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us all, because that's incredibly difficult. And what is the impact on the wider family as well? And has Natalie been able to go to work? Is she able to manage that? How does she get on with that?
Yeah, so my wife, I mean, she was going to be off for the 9 months anyway, but she obviously had longer off because of the relapses that we had. But my wife now works. She went back full time, but she's works 4 days a week now because she has 1 day a week off with childcare and our daughter and things. So, but yeah, she's back in work. She's doing brilliant in work, which is great. That was obviously a kind of consideration at the time. I mean, especially the day when it all went wrong in the hospital and things. I'd lost my wife, so there was kind of it was a struggle to even think that we had a future of any kind, really, at that point, let alone looking forward a few years. And we've now got 2 children. My wife's back in work and doing so well. So that's amazing, and I'm always really proud of her for that. And I guess, yeah, the impact of it is the kind of, as I said before, pregnancy comes with unknowns, worries, and risks, doesn't it? It's a certainty for everybody. You never know what's going to happen. And I guess in our circumstances, I found myself in a position that I really never expected to be in. And I found myself in that position very, very quickly. I said I was a first-time parent, and I'd never looked after a baby before, or even held a baby before. But then all of a sudden, I was now my wife's carer, and she was experiencing a serious mental illness that I had absolutely no understanding of. And I know it is a stereotypical view, but I gave my son his first bottle and his first bath and things like that. And I never, ever thought that that would be the case. I always thought that my wife would, that would kind of be my wife doing that, and I'd be there with her, and things like that, and we kind of did it together. But it was always kind of in my mind that mum knows best. I definitely say
Yeah.
that I wouldn't know best. Mum knows best. And but I had somehow found myself in the position that I was doing all of the firsts when my wife was unwell, and then it got to the point of her getting better and recovering, and then I was showing her how to give our son a bottle and things like that, and that just felt all levels of wrong.
Mm.
And I guess I can touch on it now, but I know I've mentioned the mother and baby unit, but the mother and baby unit's a specialist inpatient units for mums and babies, who support the mums with their mental health during pregnancy or in the postpartum period, and they'll accept babies up to 1 year old. So we were sent to our mother and baby unit in Bournemouth, in Dorset, and for us that was it was either a 3-hour round trip drive, or I was being bee hopping in that first admission. Data from NHS England, well, I remember it right, showed that more than 57,000 women received specialist support for their mental health in 2023, which was up a third from the year before. But there's only 22 mother and baby units in the UK. Soon to be 23. One's just being built in Cheshire. But they're small. They are specialist inpatient units. They're not hospitals. They're not wards. They're not anything on the scale of those. Our mother and baby unit only has 5 beds, so there simply isn't enough of them. And the care they showed for our family was amazing. And I will always be thankful to them for what they've done for us over the years. And we still go back and see them every year now because they mean so much to us. And every time we go, my son, we've told my son that it was his first home. So that's how he remembers it now. And there's still photos of him on the wall doing kind of baby activities and things like that. But he was only home for a week, and then he was there for a month. So kind of in a way looking at it, he was there, he was there longer than he was out in his first few weeks. So, but they were amazing. The mother and baby unit were amazing. But the circumstances we found ourselves in, and me being a carer, the kind of lead parent, the carer for our son, the carer for our wife, and being in that mother and baby unit for 4 weeks completely broke me. Like I said, I was either driving the round trip every day, or I was being bee hopping, and I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't eating, I wasn't looking after myself because I was completely lost in the circumstances that we found ourselves in. And following my wife's first admission and then following her second admission, I was diagnosed with PTSD, because of the experiences we had faced, because of what I had seen. And I had a relapse of my PTSD symptoms when our daughter was born, just because the odds didn't look like they were in our favour.
Yeah.
And absolutely, it didn't happen, and I'm so grateful that it didn't happen. But in my head, it was going to happen, and I knew what was coming because we'd seen it a few times before. But I honestly thought that over the years, PTSD was the only kind of impact that the years had on me personally. But last year, after all of these years, I, for whatever reason, hit rock bottom with my mental health, and I was really struggling. And I was diagnosed with depression, anxiety, and really surprisingly to me, grief. And someone much more intelligent than I am said that it was all because of what we've been through over the years, and they described it as the existential impact of the trauma we had faced, and that stuck with me. And I don't, I don't come on here and say that for any kind of sympathy, because it's part of it. It is what it is. But I guess a big part of me doing things like this and taking opportunities like this is to raise awareness for the impact that illnesses like this can have on the family network and have on the partners. I said at the beginning, when a baby's born, everybody looks after the mums and the babies. And absolutely, and I will never ever say any differently. But kind of experiences like this does show the impact that illnesses like this can have on the partners.
Absolutely.
We were 5 and a bit, 6 years on at the point that it really, really got me.
All caught
And
up
that
with
was in
you.
shock. Because like I said, I thought PTSD was the only impact it had on me. But all those years on,
Yeah,
it caught up with me.
you didn't see it coming. You didn't expect that to be so far along, but it does eventually. It all catches up with you because it is so much trauma. It is so much to go through. But Chris, you are amazing. I'm sure so many people have told you this so many times. But yeah, Natalie is so lucky to have you and the support that you've given her to help her get through this. And you've come such a long way, because you now have 2 children and a sort of functioning lifestyle, which is massive. Is massive. So you should be really, really proud of yourself and how you've handled the whole situation, because it really is incredible. And what are your family like? Like, I'm just thinking of the wider support. So the wider support for Natalie, but the wider support for the children, the wider support for you. Where's that all come from? Has that come from your family, or has that come from different organizations and support groups?
So my mum's been amazing for all of this, to be fair. Obviously, my wife wasn't born here. She's a long way from home, technically, but we are logistically closer to my mum. Obviously, we went to hers on the night that it happened, and she's been a rock all the way through it. She's helped with the kids. She's always been a support for me and that, and so that's been really important, and having kind of friends around that you can talk to. But kind of external from that, I think importantly to say is that there is specialist support available. During our first admission to the mother and baby unit, it was my mum actually who found the wonderful charity called Action on Postpartum Psychosis, APP, and she put me in touch with them. And APP are the national charity that supports women, partners and families affected by PP. And they offer training in postpartum psychosis, which is kind of co-produced and delivered by clinicians, academics and family members, mums, partners, families who lived experiences of postpartum psychosis. But importantly, they run an award-winning peer support scheme. And it's brilliant. It really, really is. And the scheme supports everybody. They support mums, they support partners, they support grandparents, the whole family network. And that's if you're currently or previously been affected by PP. And they have a online community forum, which anyone can kind of go on and speak about their experiences, or if they have any questions or concerns and everything like that. But I know that that's not for everybody. So APP also run a one-to-one peer support scheme, which I was put in touch with all of those years ago. I was connected to the partner peer support coordinator, which is not easy to say. And he was so important to me. He was someone in the midst of our crisis who could say that he understood what I was going through and that he'd been through it himself. And that was really important. And we're 7 years on now, and we're still in touch. And he's not my peer supporter anymore. He's just my mate. And even to this day, we're there for each other, and I'm really grateful for that. But you know, the charity run mothers groups across the country, like kind of county by county, and they vary if they're virtual online meetups or if they're in person. Us dads and partners have a partners caf, which is the third Wednesday of every month online, which is brilliant. There's a few of us old heads who do it, and if it's kind of just us talking about things and putting the world to rights, or we get new dads who come on, and if they want to share their experience and talk about it, or if they just want to sit and listen, that's absolutely fine. And grandparents have their own monthly Zoom meetings as well. So there really is, you know, the charity APP really do offer support for everybody, the whole family network. My wife and I are regional representatives for APP now, and peer supporters ourselves. And my mum is now a Nana peer supporter as well. So
great.
we've all embraced it. But they really, really are an incredible charity. They really are.
That's amazing. And I know that you've been doing lots of awareness activities as well. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so it's funny because it's, you know, like I said, all those years ago, we found ourselves in a position that we never expected with postpartum psychosis. And now somehow I found myself in a position I didn't expect to be in, raising awareness. I didn't know anything about PP when it first started. I didn't know that it existed. But now that it has, it's not something that I can just leave be and let it be something that's happened to us and not be able to do anything with. So over the last few years, my wife and I have completed 2 fundraisers, and we've raised almost £2,000, which has been split between APP and our MBU. And funnily enough, on Saturday, the 8th of November, so unfortunately for me, very soon, we're going to be doing a bungee jump for our third fundraiser.
Wow.
To anybody watching and listening to this, I don't want to do it. I blame my wife completely. This is her fault. It was her suggestion, and even she doesn't want to do it. But we are doing it.
Donate.
So yeah, there will be video evidence of me screaming like a little child when that happens. But you know, it's for an amazing cause, so that's coming soon. But in 2023, I started and embarked on my own personal awareness challenge. How I came up with it, I don't know. It's one of my genius ideas when I wasn't sleeping. But I'm a massive football fan, so I came up with the idea to travel around the country and to go to football matches around the soon-to-be 23 mother and baby units all across the UK to help raise awareness for PP, but importantly to help raise awareness for the really underrepresented mother and baby units in their local communities. You know, not many people know about the mother and baby units at all, probably even less than people know about postpartum psychosis. And I'm loving this tour and this challenge. I really am. I'm on my 3rd season now. I've been to 11 matches around 10 mother and baby units. And the clubs so far, the majority of them have been really, really supportive of what I'm doing. They've put a photograph of me and kind of entries about my challenge and PP and the mother and baby units in their matchday programs. I've met some players. I've had photographs pitch side. The last match I went to put me on the big screen and kind of did a public announcement. So it's
great.
It's really, really good, and I'm really enjoying it. And I always make sure that I, at the very, very least, call the mother and baby unit. I always try to go and see them in person, but I know kind of what they face, what they deal with. You know, the mums who are unwell with a variety of mental health conditions. So I know that it's not always possible for me to go and see them. So at the very least, I will give them a call. And just to say thank you, really. I've only got lived experience of our MBU in Bournemouth, but from my perspective of a dad who's gone through this, they are so important, and the people who work in them are so amazing to do the job that they do. So it's just an opportunity for me to say thank you, really, for all of the work that they do. And I always find it amazing when I do get to visit the mother and baby units, just how different they are. Because they're under the local trust and things, they are always really different. And it's lovely to see kind of the individual differences and how people, some of them do things slightly different or just unique things they do, I suppose. So yeah, I'm really enjoying this tour, but it's going to take me a little bit longer because I can only do a few matches a season, because otherwise my wife would divorce me, I think. But yeah, over the years I've done a few talks as well. I've given a talk to Surrey University and their future generation of midwives, and obviously we met at one of their midwives conferences.
Yeah.
I somehow, and I still don't know how it happened, I was a guest speaker at the Royal College of Midwives conference in May at the Birmingham ICC.
Amazing.
And I've had an article published in the Royal College of Midwives Midders Journal as well. But I've said all through this that my wife's amazing. And talking about her experiences doesn't come easy, which I understand completely. But she's published her story on the APP website, which is available for everyone to read. And the charity they get quite a few mums to write their stories about their experiences and things. So my wife's done that. But on Father's Day this year, my wife published a letter to my partner article in Chat Magazine, in the National Chat Magazine, which was an incredibly emotional and powerful read. I had no idea what was in it until I stupidly read it in the middle of Tesco's car park and bawled my eyes out. So maybe it wasn't the best place to read it, but yeah, it was incredible for her to do something like that. So yeah, I'm always so proud of her. But I guess a bit of a selfish plug. I hate technology, all technology. Me and technology are not friends, and I'm not a fan of social media. But I do have an Instagram page that kind of includes all of our awareness raising activities and things like that. So
Yes, how can we find you?
So I am the name of the page, I don't know, it's handled, isn't it? It's
The
called handle.
handle,
Shows
yeah.
how little I know.
It's a
doesn't it?
handle.
It's Wasley, so WASLEY _postpartum psychosis. So yeah, so all of our kind of awareness raising activities and things is on there.
We follow you and we sometimes share your posts as well, so people can find you that way as well. But yeah, I just think you're all amazing. Natalie, your mum, it's just, yeah, it's fantastic. We have a campaign running at the moment, as you know. It's called the I Wish I'd Known campaign. And it's to really help raise awareness for anyone who's going through pregnancy at the moment, for parents to give the peer-to-peer advice of what they wish they'd known. So what is it that you would like to say?
Personally, I'd say that's a brilliant campaign. So well done to you. I think it's kind of like I said, that pregnancy comes with unknowns, worries, and risks. It does, and that can't be avoided. And there's things that I've learned during postpartum psychosis that, I kind of wish I knew earlier. Like including like simple things that when someone experiences postpartum psychosis, they can't drive for 3 months afterwards, and you have to notify the DVLA. We only knew that when my wife got discharged, and that was a shock. Then that throws a new curveball into the mix. But I think the main thing that I wish I'd known was that illnesses like postpartum psychosis exist. I didn't know anything about PP beforehand. I didn't even know the name of it. I didn't know that it existed. I didn't know there was a possibility of it. And I know I'm not alone with that. And, over the years, I've met medics and paramedics and people who hadn't heard of PP. So it is a relatively unknown illness. And lots of work has gone on over the years to raise awareness of it. APP are doing amazing work. Hopefully I can include myself in that a little bit, and
Absolutely.
about getting the words out. But I'd never heard of it in any kind of anything prenatal. And mates of mine, other dads and partners, they went into having their children without ever knowing about PP as well. So it's just getting it out there that it exists. But over the years, I've really stumbled on a saying, and I've muddled my way through it time and time again. And I've actually searched for it this morning before this, so I was prepared. But the saying is, "Forewarned is forearmed," and I finally got it right. So I'm proud of myself. A little pat on the back. But it's right.
Yeah.
I think even just knowing that PP exists and is a possibility is a start. And even just knowing some of the warning signs or some of the symptoms could really, really help. I beat myself up for that first week for a long time because, like I said, the midwives and healthcare professionals come into your life for a snippet of time. But I know my wife, and I knew things were wrong. And I put it down to baby blues or hormones or just being a first-time mum. I don't know. But I guess the little Chris who sits on my shoulder kind of hopes that if I'd known that PP existed, and if I'd known some of the symptoms and the warning signs, then maybe if I went back, just having that little bit of knowledge, I might have acted differently. And maybe I might have been able to protect my wife better. Probably not. Probably not. Maybe that's just me trying to reassure myself a bit. I don't know. But it does, even just, sometimes it can't be stopped and sometimes it just happens. It's one of those things.
Yeah.
But even if I then knew, even if it did happen and I kind of knew it was a possibility, then you've already got to step up. You know what you're facing. You kind of know what you're dealing with.
Get help as soon as possible.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's difficult because everybody's experience is different and everybody presents differently, like you say. But yeah, to try and get that support at the earliest possible time is obviously really important. But I could talk to you all day, Chris, because it's a really important topic. Obviously, it's really important. And you've spoke so eloquently, and you've shared your story, and I've understood absolutely everything you've said. And I know that a lot of people listening to this are really going to be impacted by it. So I'm sure your Instagram is going to be flooded. And hopefully you'll get a lot more opportunities, to tell your story and speak at different events, and keep doing what you're doing because it is so important. You're raising awareness of, something that's really, really impactful. So thank you so much for talking to us today.
Thank you very much.
It's been wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I, if it's all right, can I just leave a quick message?
Absolutely.
To anybody who's going through PP or anyone who's previously gone through PP. I guess I'd just like to say that, when you're in the midst of it, PP, postpartum psychosis is all consuming. It is, if that's the crisis episode or being in a mother and baby unit or healthcare facility, or even if you're at home recovering. But I'd just like to say that things will get better. And with the appropriate treatment and support, if you're going through it, or the partner or family member, or if it's your partner or your family member, you will be expected to make and can be expected to make a full recovery in time. I know it's a difficult one because how long is time? And hopefully I haven't scared anybody by saying, our experiences lasted years. It doesn't always happen like that. It doesn't. And I think it's really important to remember that it's not your fault. I know I've beaten myself up for it for a long, long time. And yeah, if I had more information on it, maybe I would have acted differently, but the chances are I wouldn't have stopped it. the chances are it would have made no difference. And it's not your fault. It is an illness. And I think specifically, just a message for partners, look after yourselves during all of this.
Yeah.
I was, a friend of mine who will listen to this will give me a clip around the ear, but it took me a long old time to realise that I mattered in all of this. My wife Nat, our 2 kids, they were the only people who mattered in the world, and I did what I had to do to support them. But experiences like this, they do take a toll, one way or another, however long that may be, they do take a toll. And it's really, really, really important that you take time for yourself during it all to make sure you are okay. Because your partner, your loved one, your baby, they are going to need you.
Yeah, you can't fill from an empty cup.
Absolutely that. So yeah, that's my little message to anybody, just to finish things up.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you very much.
Okay. And I can't wait to see everything else that you get up to. We will be following you greatly.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on.
If you enjoyed listening to this episode, share it with a friend or colleague. Make sure you follow us so you don't miss out on our next episode. If you'd like to support our work by fundraising or volunteering, please email contact@mamaacademy.org.uk. For more information on pregnancy and maternity services, please visit our website at www.mamaacademy.org.uk. We're also on all of your favourite social media channels. See you next time!